Hello and welcome to Guiding Bolt. I'm Jessica and today we're finally circling back to continue our love of lore on Greyhawk Drow. I appreciate everyone's patience who's been waiting for this next installment. When it's summer in northern Minnesota, you have to take advantage. So, in today's part 2 video, we're going to dive into the noble families that make up the Vault of the Drow, the homeland of the Greyhawk Drow. To start, let's first take a look at a brief history. Prior to the Greyhawk Wars, the noble House Ilesere believed the Drow should be ruled by a true monarchy and visioned themselves as the leader. Despite being opposed by the priestesses of Lolth, House Ilesere devised a scheme. They found power in the worship of an alien god and developed an alliance with the evil giants from the Hell Furnace and Crystal Mist Mountains. Through these efforts, they created a secret stronghold on the surface. But this act proved to be their downfall, for surface marauders traced the trail of influence back to the vault, where they laid waste to the Ilesere's estate. Thus, with their wealth and pride besmirched, House Ilesere fell in disgrace for its weakness. Lolth did not pass up the opportunity created by Ilesere, though, and during the Greyhawk Wars, her wrath was felt across the surface world as she built upon the initial foundation laid and loosed the giant cronies of the nations bordering the central Crystal Mist Mountains. During this time, while Lolth grew her power on the surface world, the remaining noble houses tested Lolth's strengths in the vault. House Tormentor, former ally of Ilesere's, now pressed their claim to be first among the nobility in honor of their strength and decisive action against the enemies of the Drow. Previously, the greatest enemy of Ilesere's, House Ilesere, took opposition to House Tormentor, claiming their long devotion to Lolth as justification for being the prominent noble house. In response, House Tormentor rebelled and took up a new faith, supporting Kirin Seli, the Lady of the Dead. The houses of Everhate and Alevil joined banners with House Tormentor, while the houses of Despanna, Nocar, and Goddeep sided with House Ilesere. Further complicating matters during this time was the intrusion of astral legionnaires called the Githyanki, ancient enemies of the Illithid race. As the Githyanki served on the side of the rebel faction, so the Illithid felt compelled to join the conflict on the side of those who claimed loyalty to the Spider Queen. As you can guess, a bloody civil war erupted in the Drow's homeland of the Vaults. The brutal but brief conflict resulted in hundreds of deaths. The nobles might have destroyed themselves completely had not the Queen of the Spiders intervened, though the cost was great. Lolth lost her holdings on the surface world and exiled her most devoted house, House Ilesere, as divine punishment for their failure to triumph over their rivals without putting the entire Drow nation in jeopardy. All those of Ilesere blood were branded like slaves with their house crests, and over this with the sign of the spider, marking them as abominations. The servants of Lolth can detect the presence of those so marked, lest they ever attempt to return sneakily to the vault. In the wake of House Ilesere's exile, Lolth accepted the repentance of Eklavra, mistress of House Ilesere, and their house was restored to their former holdings, if not their former power. To keep things in check, should future imbalance rear its head, an 8th house was introduced, House Vey. From each of the other houses, Lolth took a living sacrifice so that none would go unpunished. Her high priestesses put the chief consort of House Tormentor through the test of sacrifice, transforming him into a hideous drider. She awarded the surviving Githyanki mercenaries to her Illithid allies to deal with as they saw fit. Only then were the Drow nobles then free to set about repairing their estates and nurturing new rivalries under the watchful eye of the Fane. Now, let's take a quick look at the 8 noble Drow houses. Tormentor. House Tormentor ranks first among the noble houses. Their matriarch is Verdaith, and while she's philosophical about the sacrifice of her consort, which allowed her house to remain in position of superiority, she would enjoy seeing Sharinida, the high priestess of Lolth, suffer the same fate. Since the wars, the vast majority of Tormentor's warriors are devoted to the vital and prestigious duty of patrolling the city wall and defending its gates. Additionally, Verdaith has begun to expand her house's activities on the surface world, taking control of several mercantile operations and buying influence with powerful politicians. House Tormentor has alliances with Ilesere and Vey. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of foreigners, and their house device is the Electrum Javelin. House Ilesere, sometimes called the House of Poison, ranks second and is governed by the mistress Mevremas. Mevremas' choice to ally with House Tormentor has proven very advantageous, as House Ilesere has grown from the weakest to one of the strongest. Additionally, Mevremas maintains close relationships with adventurers in the Underdark. Of all the nobles, she has the most extensive spy network in Ariel Sehinlu. Her agents report to her on the activities of visitors whom she might find useful. Indeed, her willingness to bring foreigners into her service is more or less free agents is unusual among Drow nobles, but she rationalizes that there will be plenty of time to enslave the world once she has gained supremacy over her own kindred. House Ilesere has alliances with the Tormentor and Vey. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of performers, and their house device is a gold wand. Mistress Nedaline rules over the third-ranking house, House Despanna. House Despanna is organized in a military-like fashion, maintained with a very un-Drow-like discipline. Despanna is also known for its diabolists and summoners, who make liberal use of bound demons and other outsiders. Nedaline came to power during the Civil War, and her brand of evil is unusually brutal, almost crude by the Drow standards. Despite being effective on the battlefield, many in her household would like to see her assassinated, but her Yugoloth guards continue to prevent any attempts. House Despanna has alliances with Goddeep. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of savages, and their house device is an adamantine mace. The fourth-ranking noble Drow house was House Nocar. House Nocar was ruled by the matron Fedara, a traditional Drow imbued in the virtues of Lolth. During the Civil War, Fedara was able to withdraw her house early from the conflict thanks to close contact with an Illithid faction outside the Vault, resulting in her house holding a stronger position than most once Lolth intervened to end the conflict. In the years after the war, the other houses continued to rebuild their strength, while House Nocar played a defensive strategy, making them vulnerable to schemes from rivals, which is precisely what led to their downfall. The Shikos family was able to displace House Nocar through assassinations, extortions, and false accusations of treason. Matron Mother Yeshinana presides over House Shikos. They specialize in necromancy and other dark arcane arts. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of scholars, and their house device is an amethyst bat. House Goddeep, the fifth-rank house, is ruled by Siedef, the mistress who's been in power the longest of any current ruling matrons. Aside from assassinating the matron of House Everhate 2 years prior to the Civil War, Siedef has been unwilling to commit to any significant military action. While it helped her house come out nearly unscathed from the Civil War, caution is not a path to power among the Drow. Despite this, House Goddeep produces especially potent magic items and is well known for its members' skills at breeding spiders. They ally with Despanna. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of artisans, and their house device is the platinum crossbow. Matron Sereska rules over House Vey, the sixth-ranking noble house in the Vault. House Vey was previously a family of landless nobles from a lost city beneath the Marge, who had long worked as slave traders. House Vey was granted the properties of the exiled Kilsek house and charged with the task of restoring the Drow to prosperity. Though they and their merchant followers are worship of the goddess Kirin Sali, the tradition of their cult allows them to give deference to the Queen of Spiders. Sereska's house is still not well accepted by other noble families, although they can call House Tormentor and House Ilesere their allies. Their urban mandate is the ghetto of slaves, and their house device is the iron chain. While House Ilesere was restored after the Civil War, they were only granted the 7th rank among the noble families. After disappearing for a number of years, many assuming her dead, House Matron Eglavra returned and took command again, becoming invaluable in her service to Lolth. She has also assumed control of the Great Fane of Lolth. House Ilesere have no alliances at present. Their urban mandate is the Ghetto of the Dead, and their house device is the Bronze Staff. Last but not least, or actually least, in 8th rank was House Everhate, ruled over by Mistress Ganna. During the Civil War, House Everhate committed all their resources to House Tormentor while still proclaiming their loyalty to the Fane of Lolth. The result was that Everhate gained nothing politically, while at the same time losing nearly everything in its estate. Since the end of the conflict, the house continued to lose status. Eventually, they were overthrown by Lady Thandisha of House Xanakos, a young and reckless family. Lady Thandisha is brash and an energetic ruler whose excess in the worship of Lolth and the pursuit of personal power are already legendary. Her primary weakness is her own ambition, because although House Xanakos engages in many different activities and schemes, it excels at none of them. Their urban mandate is the Ghetto of Outcast, and their house device is a jet crossbow. And that wraps up today's look at the noble families living in the Vault of the Drow. If you guys are interested in even more Greyhawk Drow lore, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll start putting together a part 3. Don't forget to share today's video with your drow-loving friends, and we'll see you guys back here next week.